Perfect prospect pairings. Jordyn Tyson and the Baltimore Ravens are a match made in football heaven.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That is Keith Sanchez. And on today's episode, we're breaking down perfect prospect pairings, wide receiver edition. We're going to talk about the perfect pairings for Jordyn Tyson, Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and Omar Cooper Jr. And we're going to have some differing opinions. We might have the same teams, but let's get into it, Keith, with the kind of the top two wide receivers, for us on our big board. And that is Jordyn Tyson and Carnell Tate. Keith, Jordyn Tyson, our wide receiver one on our top 50. What's your perfect pairing? That team that if he lands there, that's going to set him up for success in the NFL.
Yeah, this was. I'm gonna start with Jordyn Tyson, right? Like you said, it was tough, right? It was tough because I was looking at a couple different landing spots within the top 10, right? Because obviously you're trying to add a certain level of projectability to this, right? Yeah. Like you're not just gonna pick Jordyn Tyson to the 49ers or something like that, right? So the two teams that I came up with, DP, we've discussed before the New York Giants, right? Jordyn Tyson going to the New York Giants and how I like him as a complementary piece with the with Malik Neighbors, right, coming back healthy and everything like that, and there's, I think it was videos circulating yesterday or day before yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs, with the New York Giants, showing up to report for camp and stuff like that, and Malik Neighbors was working out. So I like that situation, him going to the New York Giants. And then the other one, I just kind of had a slight of a spoiler alert. The Kansas City Chiefs potentially taking a swing on Jordyn Tyson. If he's there, I say why not? Because they've invested into the wide receiver position, right? And I think if you look at Xavier Worthy, they spent the first round pick. We all know he's super famous because he had the fastest 40-yard dash time. But then they're looking at Tyquan Thornton after that, obviously Rashee Rice. But then it's Jalen Royals, Jason Brownlee, right? Like, there's not a lot of weapons when you really look at this wide receiver room. And I think to have a guy, in my opinion, that really fits the mold of a quote-unquote X wide receiver, right? That wide receiver that's 6'2", 200 plus pounds, they don't really have that. Tyquan Thornton is still a vertical stretch guy, right? Like when he came out of the draft. So I look at, they have two vertical stretch guys in Tyquan Thornton and Xavier Worthy, and then Rashee Rice, who kind of acts like a pseudo big slot at times,
slot,
right? But also how dependable can you be on him in specific situations, right? I think that's the best way to put it. So I think that's a sneaky spot too. So Jordyn Tyson, the two spots I have within the top 10, the New York Giants to prepare with Malik Neighbors, and then go with the Kansas City Chiefs.
So you pick one NFC team and one AFC team. My team is I pick one team that's an AFC team, but I do really like both of those names. I think we talked about that like early in the season when we did mock drafts. Like, man, Jordyn Tyson and Malik Neighbors would be a very good duo in terms of route running, explosiveness, dynamicism. They would mesh very well in everything. And for Jackson Dart, like having two guys that can get open quickly and make plays with the ball, have the speed and the electricity that they have. Yeah, 100%, right? So I like that fit. Kansas City is a sneaky one that I don't think a lot of people have really thought about for Jordyn Tyson, because everything you just laid out, Keith. Like,
it's interesting because they have pick 9.
Pick 9, and
they have pick 9, right? But and everybody thought that they would go corner, but they already addressed their cornerback needs. Well, no, they didn't address their cornerback needs. I'm sorry, so everybody thinks they'll go corner, but I think that they could potentially go after corner maybe in the second, third, fourth round, whatever that may be, and go wide receiver, because I think they're at that pivot point. Kind of somewhat like we talked about the 49ers, right? Where it's like, okay, it's finally time to revamp, right? And you've seen that with them being aggressive with going sign Kenneth Walker, meaning that, like we're all in on being better offensively. Like just being okay is not good enough no more, right? Or just being good is not good enough. We need to get back to where we had great offensive weapons and we were dangerous to to even approach or try to even play defense against.
No, 100%. And I think that's it's just in that spot with Andy Reid calling plays. We'll see what happens with Rashee Rice, and if he, like I said, can you depend on him to stay, off the field stuff? We'll see. But Xavier Worthy making him kind of that pseudo deep Z receiver, let Rashee Rice work in the slot. You can move all these guys around, and I trust a guy like Andy Reid to make the plays.
Real quick, that's what I was trying to say. They had pick 9 and 29. So if they wanted to go receiver early, pick 29, they can come back and try to address corner if one of those guys are there, right? Like if you have a Avion Terrell or potentially a Jamal McCoy, whatever that may be, right? One of those three corners fall, they can draft one there.
Yeah, for me, for Jordyn Tyson, Keith, it's the Baltimore Ravens for me. I think in my mock draft for Mock Draft Monday, I think that's where I had him slid to. He slid down the board to 14. Both Carnell Tate and Makai Lemon went before him. We'll see, because everything, like you said, Keith, everything is narrative based. When you haven't worked out and there's people reporting that your hamstring and all stuff like that, it creates a narrative, right? But then you go work out on April 17th and you run routes, you look explosive, you look dynamic, you look sharp and crisp and everything else at that private workout. You're the lasting impression from a wide receiver standpoint for these NFL teams. And I think it's strategic that he did that the week before the draft. The draft is April 23rd, guys. Like, he's doing that on April 17th. I think it's strategic and I think it's smart. So I think pairing him with Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, again, we talk about dependability. Like, Rashad Bateman just hasn't been a model of consistency for this offense. They have Mark Andrews. You lose Isaiah Likely, who's a big-time playmaker for this offense. You need to put somebody else, maybe not, even if it's not the tight end position, getting another wide receiver, and they haven't done enough of that. And need a guy that could be a ball winner down the field. Remember how Anquan Bolden helped out Joe Flacco lead them to a actual Super Bowl, Jacoby Jones and all. Like, you need to have guys that can play their roles and step in. I think Jordyn Tyson would be great in Baltimore. Keith, let's kick it over real quick to Carnell Tate, man. Keith, I thought about a couple different spots when I was thinking. And I was like, man, I think for his career in terms of target share, Cleveland. I think because you walk into Cleveland with his frame and the arm length, the vertical prowess of being able to run deep routes and things of that nature. With free releases, he's nuanced, he's detailed, he's a route technician, a space creator and separator. He's exactly what a Shedeur Sanders would love at wide receiver, in my opinion. A guy that can get open and a guy that can be dependable, not just be dependable from a route running standpoint, be dependable from a catching the football standpoint. Now, again, we've talked about Carnell Tate. Do we feel he has the highest ceiling of these wide receivers? No, because there's some yards after catch stuff that isn't in his profile and everything. And then there's some play strength concerns against physical coverage. But, I think this is you talk to people, listen to people talk about him, the pedigree is there. So I think for him, the Cleveland Browns will set him up for success because I think with Todd Monken, he'll be able to call the plays, get him going early in games, and he'll probably be the guy that gets most of the volume in that receiver room.
Yeah, so I was with Carnell Tate. I had two teams also. And one of those teams was the Cleveland Browns, and then the other team that I had, DP, was picking right after them, the Washington Commanders.
Ooh,
and yes, I consistently talk about why they need another wide receiver, right? You look at Jaden Daniels, wanting him to continue to take a step forward after, the rocky second year, right? You want him to get back to the rookie level. Well, he needs help, right? He needs weapons. And now you look at their wide receiver room. Right now they have Terry McLaurin, and then after that it's Luke McCaffrey, Treylon Burks, Diami Brown, Van Jefferson, Jalen Lane, right? Like you need another number two, right? And you can be, and we've discussed this before, like some of these wide receiver rooms that go from having a number one to kind of having a number 3 or 4, right? Like you need a number 2, right? You need one of those guys, especially developing a young quarterback. So I like the Commander situation because I think that's exactly the role that Carnell Tate should enter the NFL and fit, right? The number 2 guy. Just gonna be that complimentary piece. He'll go there with his Ohio State brother, right? Terry McLaurin, teach him the ropes, teach him, the lay of the land, how to go about being a professional, things like that. And then maybe in 3-4 years, he'll be ready to pass the torch on, right? Some in a situation
Right.
like that. So that's how I looked at it for Carnell Tate. But DP, listen, we did Jordyn Tyson, we did Carnell Tate, but we have some explosive names coming up, right? We still have Makai Lemon. Where do we place Makai Lemon, right? Is he in the top 10? Or is he one of those bottom 5, bottom 10 teams as far as projection and putting him with perfect parents? And then we have Mr. KC Concepcion. We're going to talk about where we would like to see him. We'll discuss those coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters. Every matchup is magnified and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. And here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and you'll get $250 back in bonus bets if your first bet wins. And the app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. So head to FanDuel.com right now today to get started. Again, head over to FanDuel.com right now today to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Before we give you the perfect prospect pairings for Makai Lemon and Casey Concepcion, don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to the group chat via Discord with me, with Keith, with other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com to join. Keith, Makai Lemon, let's talk about the USC standout wide receiver and what landing spots? You're talking about projectability. Like, man, if he goes here, because we talked about him being kind of an interesting case study of, is he a true bona fide? I'm not saying nobody in this class is Jeremiah Smith, right? Nobody in this class is Jamar Chase. Heck, nobody in this class is Marvin Harrison Jr. as a prospect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Malik Neighbors, none of that. But in terms of, hey, we've seen guys go to like Amon St. Brown being he was one of my favorite receivers when he came out. But if he went to a Cleveland Browns at that time, he wouldn't be put in the role and position to be a high volume target out of the slot. So with Makai Lemon, we talked about that. Where is a team? What are some teams, if you have one or two, where do you think is the perfect spot for him to land?
Yeah, in the past we've discussed, I think with Makai Lemon, we've discussed the Miami Dolphins potentially being a good fit. I think we discussed the Los Angeles Rams potentially, right? And you're hearing a lot of things, obviously, with the Puka Nacua news. And then there was news of Devontae Adams potentially being traded, right? So there's a lot of moving pieces in LA. But the team I ultimately fell on, which there's always some dysfunction around this team also. The New York Jets at pick 16. And I think that they're an underrated wide receiver needy team too, because it's Garrett Wilson and then there's a drop-off. Obviously, they traded for A.D. Mitchell last year, but in my opinion, DP, and we don't know all the details, right, of what's going on, but if the coach drafted him that high and then moved on, there's other concerns, right, that may not be tied to football. And so if you're the New York Jets, do you feel comfortable, right, with having him as your number 2 wide receiver? But I look at the New York Jets and I say, hey, Makai Lemon paired with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson can play on the outside, right? He's proven it. Like, he has the foot quickness, the explosiveness. He can play on the outside and be a vertical threat. And then let Makai Lemon kind of be that slot dominant guy that we both view that he is, right? Like, let him play in the slot and win quickly, things like that. And then let Garrett Wilson do all of your explosive stuff. So and still operate as your wide receiver 1, because I think this could be a good complementary situation when I look at those 2 wide receivers, because they don't really bump heads with each other, because Garrett Wilson offers something different from an athletic perspective.
And going back to our Amon St. Brown point, Keith, who was one of the coaches in Detroit that's been the head coach for the last year for the Jets, Aaron Glenn. He watched how Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell utilize Amon St. Brown as that chain moving, high volume target, slot receiver, that just security blanket for Jared Goff. And when you bring in Geno Smith in his second stint in New York, again, I expect Geno Smith to play better than he played in 2025. That offensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders, as we've seen, paying the money to Tyler Linderbaum and things of that nature, it was bad. It was a terrible offensive line. Like Ashton Genty would probably tell you, man, I'm getting hit in the backfield as soon as I get the football, right? Like, so the O-line didn't help the running back. It didn't help the quarterback either. I think Geno Smith is going to play better ball this season because of that O-line. You have Breece Hall. You have Garrett Wilson. You hope that mentally, I think, and I think I talked about this, like coming into that draft, we talked about A.D. Mitchell. It felt like it was always a mental thing for him because talent's not the problem. Like if everything clicks for A.D. Mitchell, he's a top 10 receiver in this class, in this league. 6'3", 200 plus pounds, 4'3" athlete, can jump out the gym. He's a smooth and crafty route runner, right? The same things we talk about Carnell Tate. I get that same thing from A.D. Mitchell, just with a bigger, more explosive frame and body type, right? Like a better athlete too. But it's just the mental part hasn't clicked for him. If that clicks, Geno should play well. Makai Lemon walking into this offense makes a ton of sense just from the aspect of they need somebody that can be, and also Garrett Wilson has battled some injuries, right? Like he's battled injuries in his career. So if he goes down, do you want it all on A.D. Mitchell, right? John Mechie left and he went in free agency to pair back up with Bryce Young in Carolina. We'll see if he gets enough reps or opportunities to get the reps with the Panthers because they do need a slot receiver and he has that familiarity. But I like that fit for Makai Lemon. That's a spot that I think I've mocked him there for most of the draft season was 16. But Keith, I got two NFC teams. I go up and depends on what happens, with Ruben Bain and different guys like that. I could see him as high as 8 to the Saints, pairing with Chris Olave, being that yards after catch against security blanket, especially when you think about a young quarterback like Tyler Shuck. Like Chris Olave proved, I mean, if it was J.C. Horn, whoever it was, like once Tyler Shuck got into that lineup, him and Tyler Shuck hit the ground running, and he stayed healthy. And you saw the Chris Olave that we all know and love as a receiver just absolutely ball out last year. Once Tyler Shuck took over, I think putting Makai Lemon in this offense, you got with Juwan Johnson at tight end. They brought in Travis Etienne because he says his name is not Etienne, it's Etienne. I don't really understand that because it looks like Etienne, but it's Etienne. I'm gonna respect the man's lineage. So you got him in the backfield. You still got Alvin Kamara. You feel really good if you're Tyler Shuck to break the huddle and you got Chris Olave and those weapons, and then Makai Lemon's in the slot as your security blanket, your chain mover, third downs. He's the guy that you look for. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Keith, you mentioned Puka Nacua. This isn't a Puka Nacua replacement. And then I think in my mock on Monday, I put him to the Los Angeles Rams. And I think what the Rams have done defensively, it to me lets me know, and they traded away one of their first round picks to go get Trent McDuffie and then go get the other corner from Kansas City and pay out that money. The front seven is good. It was more so the back end, right? Like Kobe Durant went to, I think, Dallas. He's supposed to be like the nickel corner in Dallas. I think he signed with the Cowboys this offseason. So they revamped their secondary, which puts them in the position where you say, you know what? Why not go after wide receiver? And I think Makai Lemon it was Sean McVay and how he utilizes his receivers, right? And again, I'm not taking nothing away from Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Outstanding talents. But there's a clear history when it pertains to Sean McVay and how he is probably, him and Kyle Shanahan are two of the top play calling coaches in all of NFL, all of football. They're so wide receiver friendly, Keith. Like you see wide receivers step in. No, I'm not saying Tutu Atwell could do what those guys done. As long as you have the talent, he can absolutely get the production out of you. And I think the way that Makai Lemon wins as that slot receiver or in the middle of the field, getting him matched up on safeties, things like that, the pre-snap motions that Sean McVay does to give him free releases. I used to always tell people, I'm like, man, Cooper Kupp rarely got touched when he was in his prime with the Rams. You could not get hands on Cooper Kupp. McVay wouldn't allow you to. And I think if you have the questions about Makai Lemon versus physical press coverage and bump and run, well, Sean McVay is probably the best. Him and Kyle Shanahan are two of the best in the league, or are really the two best in the league that prevent their receivers from getting hands on their receivers if they don't want you to. I think that would be a perfect fit for them.
I do too. I really like that situation. for Makai Lemon. Like that's one of the probably top 3 destinations where I feel like he'll be successful, right? Like he can kind of hit the ground running. But DP, real quick, we gonna go through KC Concepcion, right? KC, I thought about the Baltimore Ravens, right? But to keep it in the spirit of mentioning teams that we haven't mentioned, right? Like teams that could be potentially off the radar. For KC Concepcion, I thought about the Carolina Panthers, DP. Obviously with Xavier Legette in that situation not panning out, you talked about it. They have John Mechie on the roster, but I think they can use KC Concepcion because this guy's an explosive playmaker. And if you take it back to Alabama with Bryce Young, he had a lot of success with explosive guys, right? John Mechie, Jameson Williams, right? These guys that can be vertical field structures that create quick separation. So KC Concepcion, an underrated spot to me, would be the Carolina Panthers.
That's one of the favorite spots. Anytime I've done the Panthers podcast, I was recently on the Charlotte news station doing the sports segment and talking Panthers. And KC Concepcion is a spot that, there's a lot of Kenyon Sadiq has been mocked there too, but I think KC Concepcion fits exactly. I think he's like the missing piece where you say, okay, can we get the best out of Bryce? Well, what's the one element he's missing? That Jameson Williams, take the top off, explosive run after catch threat. Coker is going to be their wide receiver too, solid wide receiver. And Terrell McMillan's their number 1. Neither one of these guys are super explosive or dynamic, right? They're more power players, twin towers of sorts. You put KC Concepcion, who doesn't have to live in the slot, but in this offense, you can let him live in the slot. Man, I think Bryce Young, you might see more of an Alabama version of Bryce where he truly can just play point guard, get the ball out to his weapons, and let these guys make plays. That KC Concepcion is the missing piece for the Carolina Panthers.
Yep, I agree. Well, DP, let's do this, man. Coming up next, we have Denzel Boston, and then we have Omar Cooper Jr., DP, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I have Denzel Boston replacing a Pro Bowl wide receiver, right? And so we'll discuss that coming up next.
It's tax time. Before a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with stacks of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go on about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number 1 sports podcast network in all of America. It's all because of you, our everydayers. Keith, let's start with it. Denzel Boston. And I got a feeling we were looking at the same place, but I'm gonna let you, talk your talk. For Denzel Boston, 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver for the Washington Huskies. We talked about it. This is a guy we like as a late first, early second round pick. Yep. Which team out of the 32 teams did you believe would be a perfect pairing for him?
Yeah, so first off, I know there's been a lot of noise about the Pittsburgh Steelers, right, which makes all the sense in the world for him to go to Pittsburgh, right, and add to that wide receiver core, especially if they get Aaron Rodgers. But the team, right, like this is the breaking news or whatever. The Philadelphia Eagles, right? Like just the age, we know that there's something there, right? And we've been around long enough to where when there's smoke, there's fire, right? And to be completely honest, I don't want to hit a storyline again. I'm not trying to enter week 4 of the 2026 NFL season and then you cut on anything and we have to cover the fact that AJ Brown isn't happy in Philly. Well, it's like we've been knowing that for 2 years now, right? So it's it's time to move on. And when you're having stuff that now trickles down to, obviously the offensive coordinator, he took a lot of flack behind it, right? Or paid the kind of quote unquote ultimate price, right, for that situation. New OC. Then now you have the conversation about Jalen Hurts, right? So it's like all of these finger pointing things, situations going on, and it's ultimately affecting your locker room, right? Because even when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, it's a really good football team, right? Like you can't start fracturing within, because then now you start playing worse than what you actually are. Like you start believing that we have this many issues, and the minute you have a bad quarter, everybody's like, oh yeah, remember we're not good. And then you start having a bad half. And then now you had a completely bad game. To be honest with you, DP, in 2026, I just want good energy, man. You know what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to be good energy, right? I would want good energy in my building. And I know that's not necessarily synonymous with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Because they're kind of an angry fan base also. But I think if the fan base is angry, the players can't be mad at each other too, right? So Denzel Boston, I think you draft Denzel Boston and it gives you the opportunity to trade AJ Brown and then use that pick to kind of bolster other places, maybe potentially edge rusher, or if you want to, get another offensive lineman, address the trenches, XYZ, anything like that. But Denzel Boston to the Philadelphia Eagles made a lot of sense for me.
And that's where I was going to lean, too, as well, Keith, because I think, like you said, that trade, and not even that there's just that it's where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of talk about, man, cap-wise, they're trying to structure it to post June 1. So as the dead cap is less than what it would be right now, I truly think it's going to be a draft day trade. What I mean? I think, AJ Brown ends up in New England catching passes from Drake May. You know what I mean? Knowing that they're losing the number one in Stephon Diggs and adding a number one in the fresh scenery and things of that nature. And I think AJ Brown wants to get the ball down more, get down the field more and things of that nature and get more targets. I mean, I think New England's a good spot for him because he'll absolutely be the number one guy in that room. And if that happens, you got to refill those shoes, right? Like you got to get another X receiver, big body guy that can come in, and Denzel Boston absolutely fits winning it, and I think for because one of the things that AJ Brown helped Jalen Hurts with early, like when he first got there, was a threat in the middle of the field, right? Like that between the slant routes, the in breakers, the shallow crossers, where like Hurts knew I got a big body guy that can go make these plays in traffic, right? Where that's not where you want Devonta Smith living, right? Like I don't want him living in the midst of all the chaos and trying to no, I want him more outside, taking the top off, running his routes and getting yak. And I think Denzel Boston can, again, AJ Brown's one of the best receivers in the league. He has been most of his career. I'm not saying he's going to step in and take over that role and just like do the exact same things, but he gives you a guy that's capable of winning in similar ways. Keith, I'll throw one more team for Denzel Boston, Keith. I think the Miami Dolphins, really the Miami Dolphins just need receivers because it looks a little bleak right now. And I think with his ball skills, the route running with the specific routes that he runs and the physicality he plays at the catch point, Malik Willis would love having a Denzel Boston, in this offense. And he can move around. He can play the X, he can play the Z, and he can play the power slot situation where you do some, I'll never forget watching, I think he was with Chicago, and they were playing the 49ers, and they kept putting Brandon Marshall in the slot. And he was terrorizing that nickel corner like all game. And they couldn't adjust to it because it was just like, well, you got other receivers that could get open outside. And every time I think it was Jay Cutler wanted to get to Brandon Marshall, he had his way. Like he dominated that game just from the slot. And I think you look at a Denzel Boston, like, man, getting him matched up on smaller nickels, talking about slot fades, corner routes, things of that nature, like letting him be a power forward of sorts makes a lot of sense, Keith. Omar Cooper Jr., guy that you gave that comp, I think you said what, CeeDee Lamb or Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I said
floor?
I think I said, yes, ceiling, CeeDee Lamb, floor, Rashee Rice. But I'm gonna do this, DP. I'm gonna pass the rock. I'm gonna let you go first. I've been going first on a lot of these guys. I think pass the rock to you and allow you to go first on the Omar Cooper Jr. landing spot.
Man, San Francisco, the 49ers. Yep. I think that is a match made in heaven, perfect pairing of sorts, no pun intended. I think he fits exactly what they would want for their receiving core, a guy that can, because at the end of the day, when you lose Deebo Samuel, it's not just so much about, well, you lost the rushing aspect of it. Yes, he was, quote unquote, called him a wide back, a wide receiver running back. nobody's going to come in and do the things that Deebo Samuel was doing. Nobody's built for that type of. Heck, Deebo Samuel actually wasn't built for that type of workload. He shouldn't have had to have to do that. But what he brought was that those crossing routes, the physicality in the middle of the field, yards after catch. He was just a fearless receiver. You know what I mean? And he was a guy that I watched him up against linebackers. It was just like, this is child's play. Like, you shouldn't even be in coverage. But that's, again, going back to Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, how they match their guys up when they force that matchup. I think Omar Cooper Jr. with 4.4 speed, I think he would jump like 38, 39 inches in the vert. He gives you yards after catch. We've seen the body control and everything else he brings to the table, and he's a good route runner too, an underrated route runner for his skill set and for his frame. I always say when he catches the ball, he turns into a running back. This is a guy that plays with strength and physicality. Is going to just knock up against tacklers and pinball, and I think that will be a perfect landing spot for him to go to San Fran with Kyle Shanahan, Ricky Pearsall. And really, I think he ended up being in contention of offensive rookie of the year with Brock Purdy throwing him the rock.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I agree with you that it's a good landing spot. And you talked about the Deebo Samuel departure, Brandon Ayuk, that whole entire situation.
That's coming.
Right? Yeah,
don't know when, but it's coming.
That's on the way. And they just need, like you said, like an injection of youth, right? And young ball players to now honestly be able to grow with their quarterback for the next 5 to 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Like Brock Purdy came in, you had a fully loaded cover for him. And then now just over the past 2 years, as things that just slowly dwindled down with the injuries and trading away people and things like that. So I think this is a very important year. It was 2-3 years ago, right, when they drafted Ricky Pearsall, and I think they followed it up with Jacob Cowan. Remember the wide receiver out of Arizona, and that
both have battle injuries. Both of them have battle injuries.
Both of them battling injuries. So I think now it's about, okay, cool, let's go back to the drawing board, try to get another wide receiver. And I agree with you. Omar Cooper's style seems to fit perfectly with this Shanahan offense. And then he's tough, he's gritty. I think you can ask him to do whatever. He's willing to go across the middle with those in breakers. I think he can play on the outside. He seems like a very smart, high IQ football player, right? Like they just understands the game. And I always say that, I always use that phrase, right? Just understands it, is because some of those things are very uncoachable things. It's like either you get it or you don't, right? As far as getting open and stuff like that. So I agree with you. I like Omar Cooper Jr. to the San Francisco 49ers. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up on tomorrow, guys, we're breaking down. We're going to give you our scouting report on Ohio State monster defensive tackle, Caden McDonald. We'll break down the pros, talk about the cons, explain our grade, and give you some NFL comps as well, maybe some team fits also. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.